I'm Audrey, 32, and I never thought my own sister would watch me bleed. As a child, Natalie was my protector, my guide. When she married Greg, I treated him like family. So when they asked me to guarantee their mortgage, I just wanted time to think. I never expected saying no would result in a dislocated shoulder and blood pouring down my face while my sister coldly said, "You should sign that mortgage." Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own safety. Natalie and I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Michigan, 5 years apart. As the oldest, she protected me on the playground, helped me with my homework, and chased away bullies. Our parents worked hard to provide for us, but they weren't wealthy. My dad was a high school economics teacher, and my mom was a nurse at the local hospital. They instilled in us strong family values, the importance of education, and smart financial habits. Always have 6 months' worth of expenses saved, my dad would say as he helped us open our first bank account, and never take more risks than we could afford. Those lessons stuck with me. Although Natalie was always a little more generous with money, with different approaches to finances, we remained close throughout our teenage years. I admired her confidence and the way she handled social situations with ease, while I was more reserved. When she went to college, I cried for days, missing her late-night conversations and her protective presence. I followed her path 4 years later, working part-time to help fund the scholarship I had won. Unlike my sister who changed majors twice, I stuck to business administration, passionate about organizational structure and management. After graduating, I joined a marketing firm as an entry-level position and worked my way up to office manager at 29. My career progression allowed me to save steadily, and last year I reached the milestone of buying a 2-bedroom apartment in a nice part of town. It was modest, but it was my own, and I felt incredibly proud of the clear evidence of my financial discipline. Natalie took a different path. She worked a number of jobs after graduating, never finding her passion. 3 years ago, she met Greg at a friend's barbecue. The relationship developed quickly, and 6 months later they were engaged. The wedding was small but beautiful, and I was a bridesmaid, giving a touching speech about our connection and welcoming Greg into the family. Initially, I thought Greg was a good fit for Natalie. He was charming and seemed to love her. He worked in telecommunications sales, earning a fluctuating income on commission, but they seemed to manage their finances well. Natalie took a part-time job at a boutique fashion store, more for the discounts and socializing than for the money, or so I thought at the time. Our families remained close after Natalie got married. Sunday dinners at her parents' house were still a tradition, and we spent holidays together. I noticed subtle changes in my sister. Natalie, who had shopped at charity shops and prided herself on bargain hunting, now talked a lot about expensive designer clothes. She started commenting on my practical car, suggesting that I treat myself to something more luxurious. Greg often brought the conversation to finance, asking probing questions about my salary or commenting on the market value of my apartment. At first, I put it down to his sales habits and interest in finance. I didn't see it as a warning sign. "My sister and I are thinking about investment properties," he mentioned over a Sunday dinner about 6 months ago. Real estate is where real wealth is built. My parents nodded politely but looked at each other without saying anything. Then my dad gently reminded me, investing requires knowledge and caution. Hopefully Greg knows what he's doing. Around this time, I began dating Tyler, a police officer I met when he responded to a minor burglary at an office building. He was kind, calm, and shared my down-to-earth outlook on life. Greg seemed competitive with Tyler, often interrupting or downplaying his work when meeting his family. Tyler noticed this, but avoided confrontation for my benefit. Looking back, I realized this was the foundation for what was to come. Greg was assessing my financial situation while creating an image of prosperity that his and Natalie's financial realities did not match. His sister was gradually drawn into his worldview, where material things symbolized success and family relationships were turned into resources to be exploited. The last peaceful family celebration was my 32nd birthday, just 4 months ago. My parents threw a small party and Natalie gave me a beautiful handmade bracelet, reminiscent of our childhoods when we made jewelry for each other. In that moment, I saw my ex-sister, the one who valued affection over material value. If only I knew how quickly the relationship would fall apart from that point on. The final request that destroyed our family came on a normal Tuesday evening. Natalie called, excited, inviting me to dinner at their apartment. "We have wonderful news," she exclaimed. "And we want you to be the first to know." I brought a bottle of wine, thinking they might be expecting a baby. The apartment was clean, candles were lit, and a fancy meal was prepared. Greg gently pulled out my chair and kept pouring the wine. "What news?" I asked as Natalie brought out dessert. "Homemade tiramisu, my favorite." Greg and Natalie exchanged glances before he pulled out his phone, showing me photos of a 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch and manicured yard. "We found our dream home," Natalie said, her eyes shining. "It has 4 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a master bathroom with a gorgeous soaking tub." "That's great," I replied sincerely. "Are you really going to buy it?" "Not just thinking," Greg grinned. "We made an offer and it was accepted this morning." I almost choked on dessert. The house in the pictures looked like it was worth at least $500,000, more than I knew they could afford based on their current jobs. Greg must have read my expression. "I know what you're thinking," he said smoothly. "But I'm in line for a big promotion next month. The regional director position is almost guaranteed." This was the first I'd heard of the promotion. In fact, Greg had changed companies twice in the 3 years of their marriage, calling it strategic but failing to live up to the anticipated success. "Good news," I said cautiously. "When is the contract to buy the house?" "That's why he wanted to talk to you," Natalie interjected, taking my hand. Because of a recent job change, the bank needed additional security for the loan. My stomach clenched as Greg continued, "Your credit score is excellent, and you have a steady job history that banks love. All we need is for you to sign on as a mortgage guarantor. It's just paperwork, really." The way they presented this enormous request shocked me. As a guarantor, I would be legally responsible if they defaulted. Given Greg's volatile job and his spending habits, this was no ordinary formality. "This is a big decision," I said carefully. "I need time to consider it, to go over all the details." Greg's eyes flashed with annoyance, which he quickly covered with a smile. "Of course, but the bank needs to know by next week to keep the favorable interest rate." On the way home, my mind was full of thoughts. Dad's words about finances echoed in my head. The next day, I researched the responsibilities of being a mortgage guarantor. The more I learned, the more alarmed I became. If Natalie and Greg missed a payment, my credit score would be affected. If they defaulted, I would have to pay the debt, and I could lose my home and savings. I made an appointment with financial advisor Linda. She didn't beat around the bush. "It's a big risk," she warned. "Based on their financial situation and work history, I wouldn't recommend it." 3 days later that evening, I asked Natalie out for coffee to have a frank discussion without Greg. We met at our favorite coffee shop, and I tried to gently open the subject. "I learned about the guarantor obligation," I began. "It's actually much bigger than Greg described." Natalie stirred her coffee slowly. "I know it sounds scary, but we'll never let you get in trouble. Greg will definitely get promoted. But what if that doesn't happen, or if his health becomes compromised?" I asked. "I need to know the backup plan." Again, she sighed. "You're always terrible at planning, aren't you? Why can't you trust us?" "I trust you," I offered, "but money is business, and mixing family and finances can be complicated. Maybe look for other options, like waiting a few months until Greg has officially been promoted." Natalie's face crumpled, but she nodded. "I understand. I'll talk to Greg." I thought the conversation was fine, but that night I got a text from Greg. "Natalie told me about your concerns. Thought you'd support your sister. Turns out blood isn't thicker than water." That cryptic text was just the beginning. At subsequent Sunday family meetings, Greg was cold and curt when I spoke. Natalie tried to make peace, then kept glancing at Greg anxiously. I tried to logically present smaller options or wait until the finances were more stable. "We've figured it all out," Greg snapped. "We can afford it, just sign it so the bank can get it done." "Show me the details of the calculations," I replied. "That would put my mind at ease." "So now we have to prove it to you." Greg's voice grew louder. "Isn't your sister and I trustworthy enough?" My father frowned, advising everyone not to rush into a big financial deal. "We need more time to consider." Greg snapped, "There's no time. The housing market is competitive, this opportunity can't wait." The evening ended tensely. Natalie hugged me tightly, whispering, "I thought I could trust you." Her voice was full of hurt. My mother walked me to the car, then advised, "Be careful, Audrey. We've noticed Greg is very aggressive in his pursuit of his goals. The decision must be yours." She felt right. Only then did I understand the true seriousness. I chatted with Tyler about the situation. He was immediately concerned. "I warn you, messing up finances can be a sign of controlling relationships. Be careful. Saying no to something that makes you insecure isn't saying no to your sister." Tyler's advice helped me stay strong. I needed to protect myself and try to keep my relationship with Natalie. The problem was that it was nearly impossible. 2 weeks of silence. I called to invite her to dinner. She answered briefly or dodged. Then one Tuesday morning, my phone rang as I was getting ready for a meeting. "Audrey, it's me." Natalie's voice was tense. "The bank needs an answer by Friday. We've been patient, need to know if you'll help." "I've thought it over, I can't take this big risk." I replied carefully. "What risk?" "This is about family loyalty," she said sharply. "Remember when I lent you $300 for car repairs, no questions asked?" A small loan and a 30-year mortgage aren't on the same level. The absurd comparison left me speechless. Natalie continued, "My parents were disappointed, too. They taught us to be together." "Did I hear them tell you?" I asked. "No need. It's obvious," she replied. "Greg told my friends you have a boyfriend who's secretly turning on us." Tyler didn't like Greg. The conversation quickly degenerated, Natalie cried, and I felt both guilty and manipulated. I called my parents and, as expected, they never pressured me. They just told them to respect my choice. 2 days later, when I interviewed for an administrative assistant position, the receptionist called. I walked into the lobby and saw Natalie and Greg, dressed as if they had just come from a meeting. They said, "We need to talk." "It can't wait." I led them into a small room. "I'm in an interview, what's the rush?" I asked. Greg placed a file on the table. "Here are the mortgage papers, just sign them so we won't bother you anymore." "I've made my decision, and it's not changing." I tried to keep my voice calm. Greg's face was cold. "Do you know what this house means to us? Our future and our family. Would you let your children and grandchildren lose their safe place?" I replied, "There are many other, more reasonable options that don't require a guarantee." "We don't want any other options," he said so loudly that I had to glance out the window, afraid my colleagues would hear. "This is the house we want, the neighborhood for our future children. Are you really going to say no?" The psychological and emotional attack was obvious. Natalie sat quietly as Greg led the attack. When she spoke, the words stunned me. "If you don't do this for me, maybe we need to reconsider our relationship." I collapsed. "Natalie, this isn't about not wanting to help. This is a financial decision to protect everyone." Greg sneered, "Protect? Only protect you, right? Always thinking of yourself first." They left. I called Tyler tremblingly, recounting the situation of the surprise attack. "This is beyond a family dispute," he said sternly. "They are using emotional pressure to force you into a legal financial commitment. Have you thought about talking to a lawyer? Be careful, and keep records of all interactions." On the weekend, Mom and Dad invited everyone to dinner, hoping to cool things down. The atmosphere was heavy from the start. Mom tried to ask about work and news, but at dessert Natalie brought up family. We could lose our dream home because some people don't understand what family is. Mom and Dad scolded, "Let's not talk about this today." Why not? It's what it is now, she insisted. Audrey is so selfish that people avoid her. Mom said gently, "Financial decisions are up to each person." Natalie cried, "Are you guys defending her too?" "Let me be clear, I'm not taking sides, we just have different financial views," Dad affirmed. Greg hugged Natalie. "It's clear everyone is on her side with financial protection. We lost our future, and she doesn't need to risk her family." They left grumpily at the end of dinner. Mom squeezed my hand. "Be strong, daughter. This is not just about the house. There are problems within the family." The following week, I got a call about credit checks I hadn't authorized. The bank reported a number of unusual actions. I was concerned that Greg might be trying to manipulate me financially. Tyler suggested changing my passwords and warned, "This isn't a normal conflict. Greg is acting desperate, which is dangerous." She made an appointment to meet with Linda again for further investigation. She reported, "There are a lot of red flags. Greg has a lot of debt, delinquent credit cards, a personal loan in collection, and a mortgage from before the marriage. If you act as a guarantor, the risk is too high." Shocking information. Did Natalie know all this? If not, was she being tricked? Or was she also hiding it from me? Armed with this knowledge, I ultimately decided not to sponsor. I prepared a package of documents that outlined safer financing options, first-time buyer programs, affordable home listings, and a broker who specializes in difficult situations. I hoped this would defuse the conflict and preserve my relationship with my sister while protecting my finances. One Thursday evening, I sat down to prepare the documents, put them in professional folders with indexes and highlights, and ordered Natalie's favorite Thai food to relieve stress. Then a loud knock on the door startled me. Through the peephole, I saw Greg with an angry face, Natalie standing behind him, arms crossed. "I know you're in there. Open the door," Greg shouted. My heart was pounding. If I didn't open the door, I'd disturb the neighbors, and it would be hard to call Tyler because he was working the night shift. I unlocked the door and texted Tyler, "Greg's here, angry." "What's the matter? Why are you knocking this late?" I asked as I opened the door, which was still securely locked. Greg looked arrogant and shook his head, "Unfasten the latch. We have to talk, it can't wait." I replied, "Can it wait until tomorrow? I'm going to bring the documents to you too this weekend." Greg smirked, "There's nothing left tomorrow, the bank called. We lost the house because you were selfish and didn't help us." Before I could say anything, he slammed his shoulder into the door, breaking the latch. I recoiled in pain. "Get out of here," I tried to control my voice. Greg ripped my phone apart and threw it on the floor. "Not good at all," I cried. "Don't you know what you're doing? You'll see the consequences." "You brought this on yourself," Greg shouted. He angrily pushed me against the wall, knocking my head so hard that I felt dizzy. Pain exploded in my right shoulder. My scream only seemed to anger him further. "You think you're better than us, with your perfect credit score and responsible job," he snarled. I raised my good arm to shield my face, but he caught and twisted my wrist painfully. "Stop it, you're hurting me," I cried, looking desperately at my sister. Natalie finally moved a step forward, saying, "Greg, enough. Let's go." Not to help me, but to leave. Greg looked down at me with contempt and spat, "You brought this on yourself." They left me bleeding on the floor, betrayed by the one I had trusted most. Physical pain was excruciating, but the heartbreak was worse. I managed to sit up against the wall, blood pooling beside me. Crawling to my purse, I found my keys and painstakingly made my way down to the parking lot. Driving 15 minutes through agonizing pain, I focused on staying awake and alert. My parents' porch light was a beacon of safety when I finally arrived. They opened the door to my battered face. My mother screamed. My father caught me as I collapsed, my words slurred but clear, "Greg." He attacked me. I collapsed into their arms. The paramedics arrived, and I gave a statement to the police. Officer said, "This looks like aggravated assault, possibly attempted murder." After emergency treatment that confirmed dislocated shoulder, facial fractures, and concussion, Tyler arrived to support me. Police started search for Greg. Natalie was questioned about witnessing the attack and doing nothing. My parents vowed to keep me safe, changing my locks and hosting me while the case proceeded. Greg was arrested days later with Natalie. His trial was prompt, with overwhelming evidence of assault, financial deception, and Natalie's complicity. Greg was sentenced to 8 years, Natalie cut ties with family. Healing was slow but steady with therapy, support of Tyler and friends. I started financial workshops to empower women and found strength and hope in community. Tyler proposed, I took time then accepted, knowing my decision was from strength, not fear. Natalie's later letter acknowledged her failings, but I remain cautious. Family isn't just blood but those who protect and respect boundaries. 1 year later, I celebrated survival, scars both seen and unseen, with those who truly care. Have you ever faced choosing between family and your own well-being? Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential self-care. If this story resonates, your voice matters.